Hey, Rental Roundtable listeners, for episode number 49 of the Rental Roundtable, we had on Laura Albert, the owner and CEO of Interstate Rental Service. They're a special event rental service based in Boston, Massachusetts. 90 years in business. They do a lot of the major events in Boston, all the Super Bowl parades, the Boston Marathon, Harvard graduation events. Really awesome story hearing how long they've been in business. Laura's third generation. She worked at the New York Times, other companies before this. Started working at the company in 2019, took it over with her brother in 2021. So anyone who's interested in learning about the event rental side, how they host major events, what it's like working with family members, I think you'll enjoy this episode. All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable, episode number 49. We have on Laura Albert, the owner and CEO of Interstate Rental Service in Boston, Massachusetts. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kyle. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yes, we were just talking, episode 49. I was thinking San Francisco 49ers, great franchise. 5 all-time Super Bowl wins, not as many as the Patriots with 6, although their luck has run out lately.
It's true. It's a tough time to be a Patriots fan, but we're hoping for the best. We're hoping one of our teams will come through, but you never know here. They keep us on our toes.
Celtics are second place in the East right now, and they won the championship last year, right? I don't know, Boston's got a lot to be proud of. Atlanta sports teams, not so much.
We've won plenty, but we're hungry for more. Recently, we need some more.
Yeah, you have to have something every year. And I like your Boston, we talked about earlier, the Boston Marathon finisher sign. You were saying you didn't run the race, but you ran the race, right? Because you put on all the production for that. This is an event rental business here we're talking about. So I'm excited to jump into some of the different services and events you guys provide for a lot of the major Boston events. So Laura, I'd love to hear about your background, right? This is family business. You're now the owner and CEO. You did not start the company. Tell me about how the business got started and how you first got plugged in.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the owner and CEO of the company. It's called Interstate Rental Service in Boston. We do tables, chairs, barricades, stages, flags, that sort of thing for our clients who are, it's road races and concerts and festivals and graduations and university and community events. So not so much the social weddings, bar mitzvahs, more so on those larger institutional events. And it's a family business. So my grandfather founded the company in 1935 in the greater Boston area. And it was cigarette machine and jukebox rentals at the time, which is such a blast from the past, but just shows you how a company can evolve. So he was doing that, and he was in restaurants and bars, and then ended up getting into more lighting systems for stadiums, like the school stadium in Boston, that kind of thing. They started hosting events there, needed chairs and tables, and he started to grow his inventory to kind of provide a larger service for his clients. After that happened, my father comes into the business when he was young. My dad has only ever worked at this company. And he really saw that the special events industry was kind of taking off. Special event wasn't really a term. It wasn't really a thing back then. He really took that kind of as a big opportunity, grew the inventory, got into tenting and staging and large scale chair rentals, chair setups for graduations, and huge events. Like when the Queen came to visit Boston in the 70s, they called Interstate Rental Service, and my dad was the one handling that. He has a lot of stories, and is one of those guys who's like kind of classic rental, knows everybody and everybody knows him. So then my brother and I, he grew the business. My brother and I came in 2019 and have been co-owners since 2021. And it's been a really interesting time, really interesting ride, but we're at a good place, and excited to chat more with you about it.
Yeah. 1935. So I'm doing some math here. 90 years, which
90 years this year. Yes. If we had time, we'd plan a big anniversary party. It's
well, 100 years, you need to do big. 100 years, not many companies make it 100 years. This is definitely, we had a Northside tool rental in Atlanta. I think they were like 1950 or so. That was pretty old. But you guys are the oldest group we've had on the Rental Roundtable, which is something to be really proud of. I'm curious, like, any events that have stuck out to you that you've been a part of that you guys have helped put on? Any like high points, really events that you feel really proud of?
Yeah. So we're really fortunate in that, I think a big reason that we're able to do this is because we've been around for 90 years and because it's a family business. Our clients, even as ownership has turned over. They understand that the clients are the owners of the business. So now it's my brother and me. Before it was our dad, that we really care about their event. And I hope that they think the apple doesn't fall far. So these annual events that we're doing really means so much to us and therefore our staff as well. And events that come to mind, for example, would be the Boston Marathon, which we're thick in the planning for that right now. It's March, that's in April. So we do our own barricade and event rental, like we rent our own equipment for that event. But also we do the larger general contracting for services like power and AV and all sorts of other services that we provide for them. So permitting. So we love that event. It is all consuming all year round. And we've been fortunate to be involved since the 70s. And just kind of see it evolve and continue to kind of raise the bar for events here and also globally. And it's fun when there are new like sponsors that come in or new staff who come in. And even though it's an annual event and so much of it is the same year over year, they raise the bar and I want us to change something or redesign or just have new, fresh ideas, new activations they want to do. So that really keeps it fresh and fun. And then commencement season every year for us, we go from a marathon and then right into commencement season. We have obviously a ton of schools here in Boston, and most people will sit in one of our seats or walk across one of our stages if they're going to school in Boston. So that's like we do 30,000 chairs set up in Harvard Yard, for example. And we've done that for many years. And it's just, there's so much excitement and so much logistics, so many logistics that go into planning all of those events back to back to back. I mean, a chair can be going from one school to the next, to the next, to the next. And we try to be as efficient as possible. That definitely is when we shine, is that May season, that April season, when the warehouse is basically empty of equipment because it's all out at events.
It's a good sign for you when the warehouse is empty. And you know, I'm a runner, so I know the Boston Marathon course. It's iconic. It doesn't change. It's the same course, same time of year. Patriot Day, right? Patriots Day in Boston. Is it like pretty routine? Like, hey, every year we got the same thing, or is it like so much changing, so much innovation happening that like every year truly is different? How repetitive are these events? Because the marathon's the marathon every year. Harvard graduation's the same time every year. Is it easy, or is it like, hey, this is crazy? We're again, things are changing constantly. Like, how much repetitiveness is there to the different events year after year?
That's a great question. I think there definitely is kind of a baseline. Like we know, okay, we're going to need to place this order, contact this vendor, get in touch with the client and meet them on site at this time, that kind of thing. But I would say actually, even though these are annual events, they're institutional events, there's quite a bit that does change year to year. So it's nice that we have that baseline. We kind of know, and we have that history with a lot of our clients where we can say, okay, we're going to go back to the 2005 plan. Okay, let's pull up this. Or, the chancellor wants to see what it would be like to have the gym set up, like how it was set up for this baccalaureate. We have all of that information. So we're able to really easily provide that for our clients and kind of spitball with them and figure out what needs to be changed. I think we also work with a big part of our business is that subcontracting. And we work with a really close-knit group of vendors who are our trusted vendors and work with us on so many events throughout the year that we're able to really quickly pivot with them. But I would say, things change a lot, especially because we do so many outdoor events.
Yes.
And events that are like shutting down a street and that kind of thing. And even just something's being repaved or there's construction or this site's closed or all that kind of stuff can actually change quite a bit for our type of events, which, keeps it fresh and different for our team.
Yeah. What a cool job. And these are iconic events that you guys serve in 90 years and you're the repeat vendor for a lot of these groups. Obviously, there's a lot of trust and I can imagine it's a very complicated thing to put on. But you guys, like you said, hey, we're going to go back to the 2005 plan or the 2012 plan. And like, you've seen the play, you're sort of ready for whatever. I think it's pretty cool. One question I have for you personally, like kind of going back in your story, right? So you bought the business in 2021 with your brother. Growing up, did you think you would eventually take over the company, or did you work at other places before coming into Interstate? Like, tell me about your personal journey getting into rental.
Sure. Not in a million years did I think that I would be working at Interstate Rental Service, which is so crazy because this is the best thing in my life, professionally. Um, but no, I had a lot of internships throughout college. I went to school at NYU where professional and on-hands experience is really important. And I thought I was going to be in PR, actually. I just saw the woman that I thought I would be. I'd be calling the shots and I'd be busy running around the city and answering calls from clients and putting out fires left and right. And all of that ended up happening, but in a way that I did not see. I did think I would be in a high heel at that time. Now I'm in sneakers most days, which honestly is a big upgrade. But what happened was I went to school at NYU, had a lot of PR internships. Every time I was saying, are there events that I can help? Can I run the coat check at this event or that event, whatever? And kind of kept asking that. Then I realized, I think that actually maybe events are what I want to do. I ended up after graduating, I worked at the New York Times doing their live events when they were trying to figure out how to make money outside when people weren't buying print magazines or print newspapers. And so worked there, ended up moving back to Boston after a couple years working at the New York Times. And then I worked for a tech company in Boston doing their events. So I was traveling all across the country, putting on panel discussions, food festivals for this tech company, because it's related to food, and hosted their first ever user conference as well, after I had never been to a conference. And so it was a Herculean task, but a huge high once we pulled it off. And at that time, I mean, I'd been hearing from my parents' friends for a long time. Hey, you and your brother would be so suited to go into the business. Don't you want to see, so much about what your dad does. Aren't you interested? You're already working in that. This is, mind you, not my parents. This is my parents' friend. So imagine your family friend is calling you, telling you you should do this. It's right. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. And every time, no, I'm so happy and whatever I'm doing, I'm good. And then I think honestly, once that conference happened for that tech company that I mentioned, and I was able to pull it off with a great team, but I was the one majorly responsible for it. I had the confidence then to realize, you know what, actually, I think that I do want to go all in on this events thing. And I'm in Boston. My dad's trying to figure out what his next step is. He's not one of the guys who's gonna, ever really retire. He's just that generation, but, and we love him for it. But more so, he was trying to figure out what's my succession plan, right? That's what everybody talks about when you get to a certain age. And I said, Dad, let's do it. I want to come in. And I called my brother, and who was in Chicago at the time, working for a flooring rental company. So doing where we were setting up a lot of chairs, he was setting up a lot of flooring under it. And I said, Sam, I think I'm gonna go for it. And he moved back to Boston, and we joined up together in 2019. And it's been great. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And it's nice because my brother has the vendor side, right? He's worked at another vendor. I've worked at 2 other clients. So we're able, and more before that, but we're able to kind of see both of those sides in the business, which has honestly been very helpful.
Yeah. So it's saying you're sort of like, no way, I'm never going to do this. And then you have your parents' friends in your ear, and you're probably rolling your eyes, really? Because you're probably okay, I know Mom and Dad, you're talking to these, your friends here. I'm curious, your experience at the New York Times and at the tech startup you were at, has that helped you become a better CEO at Interstate Rental Service? Or we talked, there's a lot of second, third generation people coming into the industry, right? And sometimes people just grew up in the business, and other times, Chad Wagner came on from Minnesota. He was third generation, and he was a teacher for 11 years. And then he came into the business, to the family business. Do you feel like it's helped you having other jobs, other industries, other careers outside of Interstate? Or do you feel like in hindsight, maybe you could have just gone straight into Interstate, right out of college?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that I have that other experience. I think it helps me be able to relate to our clients, because here, I mean, we're a small family business, 25 employees. I'm the ladder. Things have to be climbed up if for decisions and whatnot, with my brother and my dad as kind of our decision-making group. But when we're dealing with our institutional clients, it's really helpful that I come from the New York Times, which is a huge institution, a lot of layers of kind of that organization. So I understand when it takes a long time to get an approval or how to kind of communicate with our clients so that they can then communicate up the ladder. I understand that because I lived that as well. I think it's also helpful. I'm glad that I started my career in New York. And New York is just an epicenter, right, for huge events and literally rolling out the red carpet and celebrities and all that kind of stuff. So it's helpful for me to have kind of come from that where the bar is very high and continue to, set a high bar in Boston as well. And I think then also working at a tech company, we have a lot of tech clients in Boston. It's a huge tech hub. And I feel like I can so relate to those clients who are calling and they have, as I mentioned, a panel discussion or whatever it is, and they just need a vendor who's they're going to be able to trust to make it happen and who isn't going to cancel last minute or jack the bill up at the end with all these added fees or that kind of thing. So I'm glad that I had that experience. I'm also really glad my brother had the experience working at that other flooring company. I think he's constantly kind of pulling back on that experience. And he's also able to, now we work with that vendor. So it's a great relationship we have with them.
I think you probably appreciate, like, you've had other jobs, you've had to go through the interview process, you've been an employee, like you weren't just handed the business at 22 years old. Like you went and carved your own path and then you came back to it. And I think you probably learned like a level of work ethic that if, the classic first generation builds it through sweat equity, second generation sees it, third generation it falls off, right? And like, it's not what's happening here. And you've built your own career and then you decided to come back. And I think with the rental industry in particular, like I'm not from the industry, I've been in it now 4.5, 5 years. I've been at other software companies at Uber and other places. And I think because of that different experience, we're able to look at things from a new perspective. And that's, the rental is an interesting place where you want people who, with a lot of experience, and most of the people we bring on our podcast are people with a lot of experience. But I think like the really great innovators and leaders in the space are able to say, hey, here, 80% of what's been done in the industry is great. Let's keep doing that. Maybe there's a 20% that we should look at differently. If you have other viewpoints, other experiences in different cities, different industries, you can kind of bring that to the table. And I mean, I think that's probably something that you have as well. Another question on the family side, right? So you bought the business, right? Or you took the business over from your parents. You bought it with your sibling. I can imagine that's a recipe for...
We came into it, but yeah.
Came into it. Yeah. Fair enough. If you've watched the show Succession, there's like, family dynamics could be interesting. What's it like working with family? Because I can imagine like at its best, it's better than anything. At its worst, it can get pretty messy. What's it like working with a parent and a sibling in the business?
Yeah, I think it's definitely different. I think back to what you were saying before, I think it's important that I had that experience of not working with a parent and a sibling in the past. So I understand, the decorum you should have in a professional environment. Because I can imagine if I had come in at 22, I would have maybe been a little less polished sometimes in speaking with them, though they're going to listen to this and say, wow, you think you're polished all the time? And I am not, I know. But no, it's honestly, it's wonderful to have that trust there with them. And because hiring and HR is such an important part of any business, but especially a small business where resources for hiring are so slim. So to be able to have my brother, I'm the CEO, he's the COO, we work in tandem as co-owners. And then my father as our chairman, like chairs, like rental chairs. He no longer has an ownership stake, but definitely is a huge advisor for us, of course. Having the three of us is super helpful in making decisions and being able to, just trust that everybody's kind of looking out for the same common goal rather than having to worry about what you might with somebody who's completely new and didn't grow up at the dinner table hearing about the clients that we're now serving. Is it all sunshine and butterflies and rainbows? No, but we try to have fun with it. I try not to take it too seriously, though, to make sure that we're, still having fun and enjoying each other's time. Because when you're in a family business, even when we're at a holiday dinner or whatever it is, we kind of inevitably end up talking about the business. We try to still, keep it light when we can.
Are there ever like restrictions like, hey, we're on a vacation, no work talk, or is it sort of, I sort of feel like work-life balance is not really a thing. Everything is like sort of intertwined, and not that you need to work out all the time, but like, I think what ultimately great looks like for me is like, you bring your best full self everywhere you go. You don't have different faces and everything's sort of connected. Do you guys have boundaries on like when you talk about work and not, or just sort of everything's connected and we just sort of, it's one big conversation?
No, we have no boundaries. We probably should. I will say, my mother has never been directly involved in the business, though she's given us a ton of advice over the years, as an operations professional herself. So when we're around her, she definitely tries to skew the conversation away from the business, which I think we all appreciate. But no, especially because we're in events, things are happening at off hours all the time. So we end up talking about it and strategizing and whatnot. And we don't really go on vacation together because somebody kind of has to be here.
True.
But when we have, yeah, we're all kind of checking in. That's why I'm saying we also try to keep it light so that when we're together, it's also not so much like it's work. It's literally my dad, right?
Yeah, it's interesting having your dad as the chairman, which I like the way you phrased that. I think we're both sort of in similar age group here, younger, trying to push things forward. I have a board and I have some gray hair. The guy 70 plus years old. He's awesome. He's seen the play. He knows what the mistakes are for the most part, right? I can bring the energy and innovation. He sort of makes sure we're on track. What role does your dad play in this? Because I have to imagine he's not involved day to day telling you what every single little decision, but I can imagine he's probably overseeing and making sure you're generally on the right course. How helpful has he been as you've taken over as CEO in the last few years?
Hugely helpful. And I think now that we're together, my brother and me, like 6 years into kind of having this working relationship, the three of us, I think finally we're able to really accept the advice that he's given and seek it out more rather than, rolling our eyes and then doing what he said anyways. So we definitely give him less of a hard time when he says, hey, I think you should be doing this. Because that's obviously as a kid, your first instinct to say, no, I got this. But we're now able to definitely accept his feedback and his thoughts a lot better. And I think he's here most days during the busier times. And he, for like the mornings, and he is involved in what he kind of wants to be involved in, which is a lot of the permitting. And he's really into the drawings as well that we do, especially because he was the one who created them for those, like when the events that we do annually, he got that first client. So he's the one who like often made that map. So he kind of focuses on those things. And then general, guidance, we're constantly texting him, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? And I have to say it's really nice. And I relish the fact that we're able to have somebody where I can say, when something comes to you as an owner, I mean, there's so many different curveballs that can be thrown to you. You have your board and I have my board, who happens to be my father. And it's nice that he has so much experience, 50 years in the business. I can say, you must have had this happen. What did you do? And he can figure that out. Though there was I will say there were quite a few technologies and whatnot that we were able to update once we came in to the business. We discovered that he was spending $300 a month to advertise in the Yellow Pages. So we cut that off. And we're constantly finding things that we're like, why do we have this in the warehouse? And it's from some event one time and, thought it was going to rent like gangbusters. I think everybody has that, but because we've been in business for 90 years, have like maybe a few more things that we thought were going to rent. Just got rid of some brown chairs that didn't really go anywhere, but that's been very interesting. I mentioned that we do still have our two-way radios that we use to communicate with our staff, that you might hear going off in the background because we have like an old school dispatch system like a taxi might have, to manage our fleet. And honestly, that works really well. So we were able to say, this is still the smart way to do it for us for now.
I love that you guys are advertising the Yellow Pages as recently as a few years ago. You probably know the reason there's so many rental companies named ABC Rentals and Ace Rentals and AAA Rentals is because they want to be listed at the top of the old Yellow Pages, right?
We're Interstate Rental Service, but we're also AA Aaron Rents. So one of our warehouses, their caller ID, if somebody calls from that warehouse, it shows up as AA Aaron Rents because I had to get those 4 A's.
It is so interesting. Like a 90-year-old business has gone through several technology changes and innovations over the years. And it's funny, like you guys are now into the future, but there's always these legacy things that hang around. Like someone's like, hey, why is it AA Aaron Rents calling? It's like, oh, let me tell you why. It's because back in the 70s, right, it used to be a certain way. Which I think is funny. I think also going back to your dad in our board, I think a lot of it's, at least if you're like me, is like, you sort of know what you're going to do. And like, hey, we're making this big decision. Can you just tell me that this is not a stupid decision? And sometimes like, no, this is a stupid decision. Do not do this. But a lot of times it's like, Yep, you're good. You're thinking about it right. And it just gives you that extra confidence to kind of move fast, right? I imagine your dad's able to sort of play that guardian role where, you're not as alone, right? There's a lot of rental companies who are alone. And that's why I think peer groups and other things like that can be really helpful. But with the experience you have with your father or whoever the previous owner is, I have to imagine that's like pretty impactful to give you the confidence to make the decisions you need to make. And like letting you fail or, make good decisions, but it's like, that's part of the learning process. They'll like prevent you, like, I know you've got 2 kids, about to have 3 kids here. Like I think parenting is making sure they don't like just jump in the pool before they can swim. It's like, you got to protect them from that stuff. If they're going to like fall off scrape their knee, that's part of the learning process. Just don't do anything catastrophic, right? It's probably what he's sort of watching for, I imagine. Earlier you were saying, this has been like the best career experience you've had. It's like a huge career high point for you. I could tell you've got a lot of energy for what you're doing. Like, what about this role and this job has been so, I guess, motivating or powerful for you?
I think just that we're able to really like impact people in their day to day. And I mean that in terms of my staff primarily. It means a lot to me to be able to have such an influence on how somebody's day to day goes, and to provide help wherever I can, and make them feel a part of what we're building here. But then I also think in terms of like my clients and the other vendors that we work with, it means a lot to me that we're a small business, so we're able to make these kind of nimble decisions to, be flexible on the term that's really going to be a sticking point for this one client, or to be the easiest client, that being one of the easiest, production companies that one of our vendors works with. That really means a lot to me. I think it's hard to find a career where you feel that way. And then also just that we're able to be a part of some really cool events. We do we were talking about sports before. Anytime a championship parade happens in the city, we've been involved, and things like that just, make it an exciting career to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, if you were based in Atlanta and you did a lot of championship events, your business would not be doing as well as it does in Boston, which is like twice a year. There's a Super Bowl or World Series trophy or something happening again all the time, right? Boston is like the mecca for professional sports. So it's interesting. Like I asked you, like what gives it, like what's been the most powerful, right? And the first thing you said was your team, the staff, and like empowering them. A lot of rental companies we talk to, they struggle to find people, and number 2, good people, number 3, motivated people who are excited for what they're doing. Like, how have you created a culture that empowers your team, and how have you found great people? Like, tell me about that a little bit more.
Sure. So I think one of our biggest opportunities and also challenges is that we're located in an urban environment. So we're in the city of Boston. Our warehouses are in the city of Boston. And when I say city of Boston, I don't mean 20, 30 miles out. I mean, literally, I'm looking at our subway system across the street outside of my window, which makes it pretty challenging, honestly, to hire people, because not everybody wants to come into the city, especially if you don't live here. So what that means is that we end up hiring people who live in the neighborhood and are really bought into the events that we're doing, because they're building the stage for the high school that they went to school at, and their nephew goes there too now. Like, so it's cool for them. And we're also fortunate that I think I hope because of the family environment that we've created here, that whereas when we say you're part of the family, that we literally mean it, that they feel we have a lot of word of mouth, bringing their friends or colleagues, whatever, from another job into the business. I think that also just makes it feel more like family, because they're literally going to work with their friends who they hang out with on the weekend too, and not just weekend because they're doing some overtime job. So I think that has really helped a lot, and we kind of operate by slow to hire, quick to fire, in terms of we're really thoughtful about what our headcount is, what bringing somebody else into the team is going to look like, and in the sense of like how it's going to affect everybody else as well, and what skills are we looking to fill, and then quick to fire, in that if we know pretty quickly if somebody isn't going to work out, and if we've made a mistake, you just have to, for the best of everybody, including the person who came in. You have to, as challenging as those conversations are, especially as the one having them, every time, you have to cut your losses on that, because keeping somebody for too long who isn't working out is not going to be good for anybody.
That's the tough part of running a business, as you know, is making those decisions. And I read Warren Buffett's annual letter he just wrote, and he had a quote from Charlie Munger about, as a CEO and hiring people, your hit rate's never going to be 100%. You just try to do decent at it. And once you know it's not working out, you have to avoid the thumb sucking, is what the phrase was, of thinking it's just going to get better, right? Because if it's not working out, it's not working out. And you have to sort of make a move on that quickly. It's interesting, like the people you brought on, you're downtown Boston. How far are you from like Fenway Park, by the way?
We're like a 12-minute truck drive.
Okay. I've been Fenway many times. I grew up a Red Sox fan when I was little. So I know I could kind of picture where you guys are. Well, I still am, I guess. I just sort of, I don't know. I don't live in Boston. I was a little kid, and I was like excited about the 2004 World Series, and anyways. But I can imagine the people who grew up Red Sox fan, and it's like, hey, do you want to do the World Series parade? Like, of course, like you probably, it doesn't matter how much you pay me. I'm just excited for the mission of what we're doing for the city. I know how important sports are in other events, Boston Marathons, that are to the city of Boston, and being part of that community. It's just got to be like a really exciting thing. On the hiring front, I love that phrase around hiring slow, firing fast, sort of thing. Like, what are some of the things you look for when you're hiring people? Like, what are some of the attributes of people that you look for?
Yeah, so this is something that actually I should also mention. We have like a kind of a small business tip. I'm the one who's responsible for all human resources, and we hired 2 years ago an HR consultant who primarily works with small businesses and nonprofits as well. And having that advice and her as a sounding board, somebody who has seen how other companies of my size operate, has been hugely helpful. And she's also really helped me with on the recruiting front, because as an owner operator, I don't have the time that I'd love to spend on doing that slow to hire process where you're really, crafting the perfect job description, putting it out there, reading all these applications, all the things that have to go before somebody gets hired. It's a lot if you're going to do it correctly. And we learned that if you're moving too quickly, then you might make a mistake, and it's best to, slow down. So she's really helped with kind of making that slow process move at a reasonable clip. But I think we have our event setup crew and our warehouse team, who are the drivers doing the deliveries day to day, and loading the trucks, unloading, all that stuff on site at all of the setups and deliveries. And then I have my production team who sit in the office and planning the events, obviously are also out on site, meeting clients, meeting vendors, doing site visits on site at the event. That's a huge part of the job. But it's interesting because the industries that they have come from have not primarily been events. I have a wonderful, our director of event production has a trade show background, so that's events, but he's also a stage manager by training. Our one of our event managers comes from the luxury dry cleaning world, and the other is from the theater world. So, and then our office manager is from the oil trucking and heating company. So it's kind of but all these businesses end up kind of having the same, fast pace, deadlines, needing to really have attention to detail, interfacing with clients, interfacing with vendors, and frankly, also having the stamina for the long days when they happen, being out in all weather. So I think we've really been kind of open to people who aren't coming necessarily from the event world. I think it's really helped because we can say, okay, how did you deal with your most difficult customer on the dry cleaning counter? Like that's a lot to deal with. And that's worked out really well for us, being open to different industries.
You don't necessarily need to be from the event like background in particular, but there's like adjacent industries. But the biggest thing is, are you great with customers? Can you work in a high action environment, right? Do you work hard? Can you be on your feet and out in cold weather? But it sounds like you just ultimately just find really great people. The idea of get the right people on the bus and then right seat on the bus, right? And over 90 years, you probably built quite the reputation. Yeah. Well, like, who's your longest tenured employee? I guess your father, but like, do you have some people who've been in the business for a long time?
40 years. Yeah, we had two big retirements last year, both 40 years. I have two other people who are 40 years with the company. So they've been, I mean, and then other, like, I have people who have been here for 10 years, and that's a long time.
Long
But like,
time.
they're the new guys, So
Yeah.
they're not actually, they are experts, but that's been a huge privilege to have people who have stayed.
Something to be proud of. That's not normal. I mean, why do they stay there that long? Like, I mean, obviously, like, you guys treat them well, but what is it about what you guys are doing at Interstate Rental that's so special? Because especially with millennials, now Gen Z, they're on a job for a year and a half, 2, 3 years, right? Like 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years, very different. Like, I mean, obviously finding great people is important, but retaining great people is even more important. I would say, like really, how do you guys retain people for that long? Because that's really impressive.
I think, thanks. And I mean, that is something that we're really proud of, especially kind of in the transition from second generation to third generation. Obviously, it was a concern. Are they going to see us come in? Like, who are
these young guns coming in, for the New York Times?
Right. But I think, honestly, it's having an open door policy. You can come talk to me about anything. I'm going to listen. My brother's going to listen. Just having kind of that escape valve to know, like, somebody is thinking about what I'm doing day to day. I will just go back to that. I think it's having these events that we're doing year after year. They know kind of what they're doing, but I hear a lot about how it's similar. So you can feel really confident in getting to know what the job is and improving, right? Because you've done it over here, you can do it over there, but it's still a different day to day. You're not just sitting working security somewhere at the same building day in and day out, but rather you're over here, you're at the Boston Common, and then you're over at TD Garden, and then you're down in the Cape, whatever it may be. So I think having that kind of just the nature of the industry really helps too. Today is Employee Appreciation Day. We had breakfast sandwiches this morning. I don't think it was the breakfast sandwiches. I try to also, have something like that too, because we can.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. Well, I still, it's not 4:00 yet on Friday, so I have more time.
You got to get off.
I got to go buy some sandwiches. The last topic I want to talk to you about is sort of like behind the scenes, like logistics. This mostly because I'm just curious, like, think about one of your favorite events, Boston Marathon or Super Bowl parade or graduation. Like, what's behind the scenes happening? How long ahead of the event are you planning? Because, to be honest, I don't really think about it. I go to the event, go to a concert. It's great. If it actually is done well, the average person is not thinking about, wonder what time they set the chairs up, and like, wonder when they pulled the permits, right? Like, that's the magic of what you're doing. It should feel seamless and invisible to the event, right? But like behind the scenes is like an average person listening to this, like, what's going on? Like, how long ahead of time are you planning? What is like the 30-day, 15-day, 1 day leading up to it? What is that process like?
Yeah. So we, it changes depending on the timeline. But with events, so much ends up getting planned really within I would say the last, depending on how big the event is, the last 6 to 6 hours before the event, just based on kind of when it happens. So we have the events that we know about that we're privileged to have earned the business year after year. And we have internal timelines for, okay, we know it's this walk that we have in October. That's a cherished event that we do every year. Okay, in December, we're going to start reaching out to this vendor in kind of a monthly plan for that. And then there are certain kind of everything accelerates once you get closer to the actual event, because that's when all the other vendors and everybody's really paying attention to it. And it becomes top priority. But we have things going in the background just to make that time a lot easier. But I would say, but then we also have the championship parades, which are planned in 48 hours. So because we have these longer events, we're able to really condense it. I'd say something that is a specialty that we have is, and something that my dad has kind of grown as part of the business. And that's, I mentioned he likes kind of being involved in the city relationships. And this is his forte and his interest, but is permitting. So that's a huge part of it. So many of the events that we do, again, because we're unique. Most event rental companies are going to tell you all about the weddings that they're doing. And we're going to tell you all about how we've closed Boylston Street probably more than any other company in the area, right? So it starts with permitting, figuring out based on precedent that's been set from other events, what are we going to be able to do? The client wants to have their event on this day at this time. Well, if it's not at a private property, you're going to have to kind of go through that whole process. And that's dealing not only with the actual getting occupancy permits, but also the fire department, police department, traffic, all of those different departments in the city can agree on it. We have a whole process in the city in the city of Boston that we're well versed in, and as a service, sometimes we'll just be providing the permits for an event. That's rare, but sometimes. So permitting happens, then we'll meet with the client, figure out what their needs are. We'll make suggestions based on similar events that we've done in the past. Have you thought about your fencing? Do you want to use chain link? Do you want to use white sports fence? Do you want to use barricades? All that kind of stuff. Figure out exactly what they need, what we're going to be able to provide in-house from our own inventory. And then kind of if it's just our own equipment, then we'll put the orders in. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of changes. I don't know if that's the same with equipment rental, but it's constantly, I need 10 more chairs. Oh, I need 100 more chairs. Oh, now the provost wants white chairs. Okay, now we want this. Now we're going to have a whole a cappella group on the stage. So we need a bigger stage, that kind of thing. Or we need to wait for the RSVPs to come in for the alumni event. So we won't be able to tell you until 2 weeks before how many chairs we need. We're flexible. We have one of the largest chair inventories in the country. So we're able, that to us, that's not a huge deal to make those changes, unless we're in one of our busy times when the warehouse is empty. But kind of figure out exactly what their rental needs are. If we're bringing in other vendors, we'll figure out who the best vendor is going to be and for the event and the client. And then we make all of those arrangements. It can be a lot with the site maps and just figuring out the logistics of when everything's going to come in. Often we're working with tight deadlines for install and removal because the street needs to be opened back up, or honestly, at a lot of the schools, the volleyball team needs to practice and they can't move that. So we need to get out, things like that. So it's a lot of back and forth. We're really keen on, over communicating. We'll be the company that's going to follow up with you. And we have kind of jokes in the office about, and this is something that comes from my dad, but is like, okay, you haven't heard back from them. Did you call them on the phone? Did you text them? Did you LinkedIn stalk them? Whatever it may be. Did you look on their Instagram to see where they might be? Are they traveling? Is that why we're not hearing that kind of thing? If we can't reach, it's just a lot of that kind of back and forth. And we'll be like, did you show up at their door? Which we haven't yet done, but
maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Nobody's gotten us to that point, but just kind of being super communicative so that we're checking off every box and making it so that our clients don't have to deal with all this stuff, because for most of them, this isn't their job. They're not planning an event. They're coming to us because they've been tasked with planning an event and want somebody else to handle it who they can trust.
Yeah, after 90 years, all sorts of Boston weather, all sorts of events, you've just seen anything that can happen at this point. That's why you guys are the specialists, right? And I imagine things are changing up to the last week, the last day, the last hour. But even these Super Bowl and championship parades, there's probably some element you want your team to win, but you're also like, man, if they win, we got to hustle here, right? It's probably a little bittersweet. You want the Celtics to win, but you got 3 days to turn this around. So I don't, could be some late nights coming up if they do win.
Yeah, it's nice to have a playbook. And I should mention, we're also often on site at all of our events, or many of our events. So then we're up early first thing. Or for those parades, we're not sleeping from the night before, and then there until the last dumpster gets picked up or whatever it may be. So definitely long days. But you and I both know as parents that being up at all hours of the night, you can still survive. It's all good.
Yeah, and half these episodes I'm drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee. By the way, that's my guilty habit. That's Boston connection here. So I do a lot of coffee. Keep going. Well, Laura, it's been awesome having you on and sharing your experience. 90-year business, a lot to be proud of. Third generation, talking about working with your father, the chairman, and your brother. And I think even your background outside of rental, kind of coming into this, is really cool too. Last question I have, which I like to ask people, is what's the best piece of business advice or some business advice that you've gotten that's helped shape what you're building at Interstate Rental Service?
Best business advice that I've got.
And I always ask that people I don't know. Put me on the spot.
Interesting.
Lower the bar. What's some good business advice that you've gotten that's helped you build what you're doing now?
No, I think probably some of the best. There's so much, but I think probably some of the best would be just never to burn a bridge. You just never know when somebody's going to come back into your your world, like it's no matter how high the tensions might be, I think it's really important. And I've seen that so many times that this client goes to another school, or this vendor ends up, somebody who worked for the vendor ended up starting their own business, and whatever maybe. I think it's just really important to be kind of level, like, I don't know, to just not burn a bridge, to continue to, maintain a relationship. You never know where it's going to lead you. Maybe it's just to be a friend. But I think that's really important. That's something that that we kind of try to do. And I think that's helped us build really good relationships, because you don't have somebody, saying, oh, they did this, they did that. You won't believe the things out of that girl's mouth, whatever it may be. I think that's important. I think that applies to any business, event, equipment rental, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think that's a great lesson for life, not even just business, right? One of our board members said, life is short, relationships are long. And I think that's so important. And not even if it's going to make you another dollar in the future, but just treating people well. And I think that's just so important. So, Laura, thank you for coming on. Awesome episode number 49 here. So thanks again for coming on, Laura. Appreciate you spending time with us today.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you as well.
Thanks.